Hey YouTube, welcome to another Green Dragon Gaming Club Battle Report. Without us, they never feel like winners, and without them, we couldn't look so good. Got another pretty boy bat rep for you. So this game was probably about a month ago now. This happened right after Buckeye, just a casual game over at Mark's house, and I'm trying to figure out in this interlude now that the tournaments have kind of slowed down. What's my next project? Do I want to go with ogres, orcs and goblins, vampires? What do I want to do? So I'm doing a lot of practice games with vampires and a little bit with ogres. In this particular game, this is my first try at a vampire list, and I'm playing Dan, who is on a short hiatus from not playing. So he brought over his army. We were excited to have a chance to get a game in. So this is my list. You can see it's a very themed list. I was trying something. It's a little fluffy, but there's also some very obvious strengths to it. So I got the Vampire Count, who's Strigoi. He's toughness 6. He's got like 6 attacks, initiative 8 with hatred. He can be strength 7 for a turn. I like the idea of shamanism blending well with this army because I think it is a strong boon to their strengths already. Then I got a couple necromancers just to try to keep things up, but I don't need too many necromancers because this entire army is very tough and is going to have regen. It is a ghoul list through and through, so I got my big horde of ghouls and then zombies to bunker the necros. I got double altars with the tomb upgrade, so the necromancers can get their spells off very easily, provide regen bubbles. I got the ghasts, which will be scoring with my general inside them, and another main combat block. The one piece of dedicated chaff, the great bats, and the double shrieking horror, which will benefit from the regen buffs as well and provide me a little bit of ranged in addition to the altars and maneuverability. And although they don't look like it, Dan brought his empire this time. They're his ratmen are dressed like empire guys, but they actually are men for this game. And he brought a very interesting list as well. So I don't remember his list exactly, but I'll try to describe best I can in deployment. So here we go. This is a picture of deployment. The scenario we played was standard, and then it was capture the flags. I'm going to probably spoil this right now. This is going to be a pretty quick video. It's a very bloody game, so the flags really don't come into play. But anyway, on the left there, he's got 2 units of 20 or 25 flagellants, which are pretty scary. Then he's got 2 artillery pieces. The one artillery piece is a mortar, and the other one is a volley gun. And then he has these 3 just huge blocks. 2 of them are 50-man halberdier units, and then I believe the middle one, I think it's halberdiers too. All 3 of them are 50 halberdiers. And then behind them, he has the 2 buff wagons, the one that gives lightning reflexes, the other that gives distracting. And then he has his general, a prelate on a war altar, and he's got the, I think he's got the item where like he can switch stats with you. And then he's got some other characters and scattered about in the other units. And then this is my list. I chose to go for a very compact deployment. Put myself between the river and the building, protect my flanks. We're going to go head to head and just grind this out. So I won the turn to go first because I just dropped everything down. My deployment is very specific, and not only is the march bubble short, but I have to keep everything very close together to benefit from the regen bubble that's being given out. So the one thing I will note about Dan's list that does come into play is that he brought no casters. He just has, I think, about 8 bound spells that he just tries to spam to buff those halberdier units. So those halberdier units are pretty scary because there's a lot of them. They're strength 4. They already have lightning reflexes and distracting, and then he can give them hatred. He can give them like flaming attacks. He can give them all sorts of stuff. So anyway, this is my turn 1. I'm just trying to shift my army up, use that building to protect my flank best I can from the flagellants. And yeah, so that's what it looks like. My plan is to eventually get my Great Bats over to the left to divert them, because they are frenzied, and just escape from having to deal with them at all and just rush into his lines. Then in the magic phase, I got lucky and I rolled as many dice as I could to get a Aura Dance Macabre off, and I was able to get it off. So this was huge. So now I basically had 2 movement phases in 1 turn, and I start to move aggressively up, because now I can start getting into combat a little bit quicker, and hopefully those flagellants won't have time to get to me, because they're pretty far off on the flank right now. So Empire Rats turn 1. Dan starts moving those flagellants down the flank as fast as he can. Everybody else kind of is just chilling, either on the hill or off the hill. Just gets his buff wagons into place and his general. He has a good magic phase. He gets like 3 different buffs off, and now there's absolutely no way that I can charge into him turn 2, even if I was planning on it. I know the middle unit, half the unit is off the hill a little bit. We just didn't want it tipping over. It's flush with the rest of the unit. But yeah, so those dice markers, just the different buffs he got off. I forget what they are. It's not really important, but they it made those units very scary to deal with. In the shooting phase, his mortar hits my ghouls and actually does a decent amount of damage, even through 5-up regen. So looks like he killed about 7 or 8 guys there. And but unfortunately for him, his volley gun misfired and can't shoot for the rest of the game. So that was really bad, because that volley gun could really hurt my Shrieking Horrors. So I had to be very careful about where I moved them. Not to mention like my altars and different things like that. So turn 2 vampires. I continue to advance, and now I have those bats on the left side. So when his flagellants really aren't in charge range, or if they are, they're extremely far away, like needing 11 or 12. So now I'll have those bats to chaff him up if he gets too close. And then I raise back 6 ghouls in my magic phase, so that was nice. And I also get off a chaff unit of zombies by raising the dead right here. Yeah, just so he can't get multi-charges in or anything like that. It gives me some options. So this is EoS turn 2. I believe one of his flagellant unit fails a frenzy check and like charges and fails, which is why the one is ahead of the other, and he just marches up with the other one. So that was fortunate for me. He chooses not to charge the zombies, which might have been a mistake, I think. I shouldn't say that. That probably was a mistake. I made sure with my movement to keep my ghouls back far enough to be able to make a wheel around the zombies, so they wouldn't be chaffing up my unit. It was very close, but in my turn it ends up coming through. I get lucky that I was able to shut down his magic phase. Besides that first turn, Dan just had a rough time. He's just spamming spells, and I mean his magic phases should be very scary. I just got lucky, and I was able to shut down, fortunately, a lot of his magic due to bad rolling on his part, and also I have a +4 to dispel. So he didn't really get anything off. He might have gotten 1 spell off, but nothing like of note that was going to really worry me, which is good because I plan on charging in next turn. And I do. So turn 3, like I said, those ghouls were able to make that wheel. They get in with the 1 Shrieking Horror into those halberdiers on the right. and then I charge in with my general and the other ghasts into the unit on the left, and that's how it looks right there. Um, in Magic, I get a Totemic Summon off, so I could go after the artillery, or I can come in and try to pester the Flagellants, breath weapon them. And then in combat, sorry, this is a really weird picture. I kill about 16 of those halberdiers, so that was pretty awesome. They don't kill many of me. The only reason that he's not running for the hills is that I am partially in the water, so he is steadfast and he holds there. And then over here, yeah, this is going to be a tougher grind for me because I just don't have the same volume of attacks that the ghouls do with the Shrieking Horror. But I do a decent number of wounds. I lose a couple guys in the process, unfortunately. So I win by a few, and he holds because he's, of course, steadfast. So this is EoS then turn 3, and now he's really just trying to race those Flagellants over, and otherwise not too much going on. The middle unit, the halberdiers on the hill, charge the zombies. They're going to be dead. In Magic, again, just not getting off the same number of spells that you would think he would get, in combination of me shutting them down and just him not having the best Magic phases. So he gets one buff off here. He's trying to save this unit, but no dice. They flee. My Shrieking Horror chases my ghouls hold, so that I can face his unit, which crushed the zombies in the middle, and so that's going to be a frontline clash next turn. And on the left, we continue to grind, and I lose another couple ghasts, which is not good. So this is VC turn 4. We're sending everything into that middle unit. That's where most of his characters are. So I got an altar in the flank, horror in the front with the ghouls. The horror chases down the unit that was fleeing and then makes the leadership test to pivot after catching them. So now I'm facing down all of his wagons, and then the bats move up to chaff the Flagellants. Over here, I do get a ghast back, thanks to Magic. And then, let's see. And then in combat, I do a bunch of wounds, but he kills a bunch of ghouls, so he's steadfast and he holds. And then I lose a couple ghasts again. They're still grinding, but the halberdiers are now starting to die off. He's not holding steadfast by much now. EoS turn 4, he charges the chaff. One of his chariots, I believe, charges the ghasts, and then otherwise he just shuffles things around. He's just trying to focus his magic and the buffs that he has into winning those combats. So this is... Okay, this must be part of the way into combat. I don't know why I took this preemptive picture. So here's after combat. Yeah, he kills the chaff and he overruns. I just have my general left and my champion. They're able to hold steadfast again, and then he reforms into ranks. And I must have been wrong about him charging a chariot. They're all still back there. So they're still stuck in that fight. He grinds me down. I don't have many ghouls left in that unit. I basically have a rank left. But he is also losing guys. He holds on to steadfast, though, and he holds. So now I got to start cleaning up. So, vampire turn. Horror goes into the flank of the first buff wagon. I'm going to try to go down the line. The other altar, which is proxied by that cadaver wagon, now needs to go into the Flagellants. Now at this point, I decide to pop the altar's other power, which is not to just give regen. They can actually do a shooting attack, and it's like within 12 inches, and it's the D6 hits at the strength of the turn number. So now they're high strength, and I'm killing a bunch of stuff, and it works even on units that are in combat. So it's killing a bunch of stuff all around them, and it occurs at the start of the turn, so you can do it before you make charges, which is insane. That is so good. And I'll talk a little bit about that at the end of the video. So that's how it looks there. In Magic, I get a gas back to help me out here. And then finally, that unit on the hill breaks. My general's unit pursues. They get away, but I go rushing into the next wagon, which I believe is where... Oh, no, it's just a buff wagon. My Shrieking Horror kills the other buff wagon and overruns into the flank of the general. And then Ghouls and Friends finally finishes off the middle halberdier unit with all the characters and such. The Flagellants do 1 wound to the altar that charged in. I do a few wounds back. They're unbreakable. Nothing's going to happen there. So EoS turn 5. The unit that was running away rallied near the edge of the board. And then he just turns his Flagellants around that were facing the wrong way. There's really not much to do at this point. I kill off the remaining Flagellants here, which is fairly lucky. And I only take 1 more wound. The regen was helping out big time. And also toughness 5. Not bad either. And then turn 6, we're going all in. My general's unit goes into his general, which held up the Shrieking Horror from the turn before. And then I do the strength 6 shooting. I kill off a bunch of Flagellants and then charge in with the Shrieking Horror into the last unit. And everything dies. And after his general dies, the unit that had rallied flees off the board, and he's left with artillery. And unfortunately, the vampires are all on the board with the exception of the bats. So I lost 80 points this game. So the results is a Vampire Covenant victory. MVPs. For the Empire Sandstorm, I would say the magic was really scary. It was just a combination of me having a +4 to Dispel and just poor spreads and poor dice rolling on Dan's part that it wasn't more effective. Because I think that setup could be very scary, because you're going to have to grind it out with those units, and then in his turn, once he gets those magic buffs, they can be devastating. So I got off relatively easy there, but I liked it. It was an interesting setup. And then for VC, the altars were amazing. Giving the regen bubbles off was paramount in the long grinds to keep the units alive without relying on magic. Which is one of the strengths of this list. I like it, is that I don't have to spam evoke to keep the army durable and running. That the toughness and then the inherent regen I'm getting helps to keep the units alive. And then on top of that, I have a couple chances to raise guys back. But the altars between the regen bubble and then the shooting attack, and then they were able to charge in the last couple turns, it really helped turn some combats and just clean up stuff. So I really like those units. And lastly, for the section of what did we learn today? So for Empire Sandstorm, why would you even bring spells? I'm not overly familiar with the army, but I now know how capable they are of spamming bound spells. The bound spells are good. They have access to some very powerful bound spells, and they have different great tools in the army that synergize well, that give them innate abilities, characters that grant hatred, and you got the buff wagons. I like it a lot. I think this speaks to how good bound spells are, but for Empire specifically, save the price on a mage. You could just spam bound spells. Not a bad thought. For VC, the power of the double altar. there are definitely other lists out there. Most notably, Chris Mintz has a double altar list with his Colossal Zombie Dragon. So I've seen it before, but having used it myself and played against it once before, it's very strong. I really like the altars. They're expensive, but they do a lot for you. The regen bubble is amazing, but the end game is extremely, extremely handy. Because it's turn 5 or turn 6. That's when they get really useful, when you could do that shooting attack and then do charges with them after they shoot. It really helps to turn end game combats and clean up stuff. So I really like the altars. I don't know if I'll be able to get them in future lists or future lists that I would bring to a tournament, but I think it's a very powerful unit. Um, I do end up scrapping this list, though. I think I played with it twice, and then I stopped using it. As well as it did, and it has some very, very good strengths. It's great points denial. Clearly, I only lost 80 points in this game. And it's very tanky. It's very durable. It's decent against monsters, and it's decent against infantry because of the number of attacks and all the poison. But for me, my issue is that the movement is extremely restrictive. VC has trouble with the March bubble to begin with, staying in your general's 12-inch. But then on top of that, when you have the altars, and with this type of list, you need to keep everything so bunched together because the range for the regen is very short. It's only 6 inches plus the turn number. So, especially for the first couple of turns when movement is so critical, you got to stay within like 7 or 8 inches of everything. So that's the part I didn't like. I don't think it's a bad list, but I just think that I'm going to trip myself up. If I bring this to a tournament, I'll screw up my movement. I'll do something. I need a little bit more flexibility in my movement. And also, this was pointed out to me by Dan and a couple other people who were watching. The ghasts are not the best combat unit, and I would have to agree. They're very durable. They're extremely durable, but they don't put out quite enough punch. I think I was somewhat lucky with this matchup because it was just horde on horde, and I was able to win the grind. VC is very good at that. That's just a general army strength. But yeah, pulling out a win eventually against Halberdiers is nothing really that impressive. So I ended up scrapping the list, but it was fun to play. That's all I have for this one, guys. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy these videos. I appreciate your viewership. Do the YouTube stuff, like, subscribe. Comment below. Please leave any feedback regarding tactics, strategy, maybe what army you think I should play, whether it be ogres or vampires. Just any general comments on the videos. I'd greatly appreciate it. And hopefully I'll get you guys a couple of videos coming up maybe in a week or two when I get back from vacation of me playing with my new VC list that I've been practicing on UB. See what you think. Alright, well, have a good one, guys. Thanks.